The Terminal List is an action thriller TV show based on the 2018 novel of the same name, which was written by former Navy SEAL Jack Carr. The show stars Chris Pratt as Navy SEAL James Reese, who embarks on a doomed mission with his platoon, which results in the death of all of them, save himself and one other soldier. Upon returning home, Reese begins to unearth the true motives behind his friend's death, which leads him on a brutal warpath to bring those responsible to justice. I was a little skeptical going into this show because I'm more of a movie person, and 8 one-hour-long episodes is a bit of a time sink. Plus, I'd never read the book and I didn't know anything about the story. But I like Chris Pratt and I had heard good things about it, so I figured I would at least give it a shot. And I'm glad I did, because after each episode ended, I found myself genuinely excited to see what was going to happen next. Chris Pratt really blew me away with his performance, and he seemed to have put in the work required to move and act like a trained Navy SEAL. The Terminal List is unadulterated, unpretentious, manly fun, and I had an absolute blast watching it. Some TV shows can feel like chores to get through, but thankfully that wasn't the case here. It's well acted, well written, and best of all, it's entertaining as hell. There's also some beautiful cinematography, which makes this one of the most aesthetically pleasing shows I've seen in a while. But there's a couple things I want to touch on surrounding why this show has been doing so well, and how the critics have got this one completely wrong. At the time I'm writing this, the Terminal List on Rotten Tomatoes sits at an aggregate critic score of 40% out of 55 critic reviews, while the audience score sits at 95% out of 3,188 reviews. Think of it as the anti-Last Jedi. This large of a review disparity isn't all that common. Usually if a movie or TV show is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score tends to be in that general ballpark, with maybe a 10% variance in either direction at the most. So when you see such a drastic difference in opinion, you might assume that the TV show or film is about a controversial topic or contains some type of divisive content. But that's one of the things that's so interesting with The Terminal List. It's just a fictional story about a Navy SEAL who gets revenge on the people who wronged him. I wouldn't really call that controversial. So if it's not that, maybe it's the quality of the show, like the writing, the production value, or the acting. But having watched the show, all of those things, in my humble opinion, were very well done. So what is it that's causing the critics' reaction to be mixed, while the audience is overwhelmingly loving this show? Well, I have some theories. They may not be correct, but I'm going to share them anyway. The critics don't like the Terminal List for many reasons, and most of them stupid. But one of the big ones is the fact that the Terminal List features a main character who is 1, white, 2, straight, and 3, male, which, as we know, is the forbidden unholy trifecta in modern woke-dominated entertainment. But it gets worse. Aside from James Reese being white, straight, and male, he's also very competent. He's a family man, and he has the gall to question the government. Truly terrifying stuff. I'm being facetious, of course, but you get the point. All critics ever talk about are how important strong female characters are. But as soon as a strong male character comes around, they shriek like banshees and denounce it as toxic masculinity. But allow me to retort by pointing out that men doing manly things isn't toxic. What's toxic are people who treat masculine behavior as some kind of disease to be cured of. James Reese is a character who is capable of brutal acts of violence, but he doesn't make any qualms about it. That's what he has trained his whole life to do. He says at one point it's a mistake to push a man to violence, when violence is what he has dedicated his life to perfecting. For him, it's simple. The people who contributed to the death of his loved ones are going to die. The show isn't portraying Reese like he's completely in the right either. He's not necessarily the good guy, but he's also not really the bad guy either. He's the inevitable result of a government who has failed him, and he doesn't know what else to do. I think the main reason critics don't like the show, but general audiences do, is that it doesn't try to push any political or social agenda. It's reminiscent of the days when entertainment was just that. It was there to entertain the audience, not preach at them. The Terminal List is like that in a lot of ways. It knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. Some people have labeled this show a right-wing fantasy, and I genuinely don't have a clue what they mean by this. What on earth is a right-wing fantasy? And what makes a fantasy right-wing? Because it depicts vigilante justice? Are Charles Bronson movies right-wing now? By the way, even though that statement is confusing and stupid, calling it that isn't the insult they think it is. It honestly just made me want to see it more. A lot of critics seem to live in an isolated bubble, and as a result have completely lost touch with what regular people want to see on screen. Now, to be fair, if you're someone who watched The Terminal List and just didn't enjoy it, nothing wrong with that at all. It's obviously not going to be for everybody. But disliking it because it's supposedly a right-wing fantasy, or the main character is somehow a toxic male, or because it doesn't preach a woke left-wing agenda, well, that's just dumb. The Terminal List is a fantastic show that I would highly recommend to anyone looking for a well-made action thriller that respects its source material and the struggle so many American soldiers face with PTSD. I'll close with a direct quote from Jack Carr. The 95% viewer rating, audience rating, makes it all worth it. We didn't make it for the critics. And that, my friends, is what makes The Terminal List so successful. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, check out my video on the problem with the Rings of Power. As always, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you later.